Yo, living will declaration. If I, Kevin Charles Stewart, become incapacitated and therefore unable to verbalize to my administrators as to my own health care, I direct that this statement be read and obeyed as a true reflection of my health care wishes. I ask that my right to direct my own health care, as guaranteed by the United States Constitution, be followed and given precedence over every other agenda or authority. Definitions. Concerning this document, the following definitions apply. A. Artificially administered hydration and nutrition, or food and water, equals provision of nutrients or fluids by a tube inserted in a vein in any part of the gastrointestinal tract or under the skin in the hypodermis. B. Attending physician or physicians, equals doctor or doctors licensed by the State Board of Medicine, assigned to or chosen by the patient, and who has or have primary responsibility for the treatment and care of the patient. C. Care provider, equals any person certified, licensed, or otherwise legally authorized to administer health care in the ordinary course of business or practice of their vocation. D. Chronic vegetative state, equals an irreversible and permanent condition in which there is 1. Absence of voluntary action of cognitive behavior, or 2. Inability to communicate or interact meaningfully with the surroundings. E. Comfort care, equals assistance for the supposed purpose of comfort and or alleviating pain, such as hospice care. F. Irreversible coma, equals a deep state of unconsciousness caused by caustic substance, concussion, disease, or other means, and for which it has been determined that there exists no reasonable expectation of regaining autonomous functioning. G. Life-prolonging or sustaining procedure, equals any medical procedure, treatment, or intervention which sustains, restores, or supplants any spontaneous vital function. H. Terminal condition, equals any medical condition caused by disease, illness, injury, or stroke which lacks a reasonable probability of recovery and which, without treatment, can be expected to cause permanent loss of autonomous function or death. End of life decisions and medical directives. I direct that my care providers and attending physicians provide, withdraw, or withhold treatment in accordance with my directions below. 1. If I have acquired a chronic, incurable, or irreversible condition that will ultimately result in my death or permanent loss of autonomous functioning, mentally or physically, I direct that I be withheld from any artificial life support or any additional life-prolonging treatment. Initials to be signed. I not be artificially administered food, liquids, nutrients, or water, realizing that this will probably hasten my death. Initials to be signed. I not be provided any so-called comfort care, such as hospice, if the effect would be to prolong my life. Initials to be signed. 2. If I am diagnosed as being in a chronic or irreversible coma, and to a reasonable degree of medical certainty, I will not regain autonomous functioning both mentally and physically, I direct that I be removed from any artificial life support or any additional life-prolonging treatment. Initials to be signed. I not be artificially administered food, liquids, nutrients, or water, realizing that this will probably hasten my death. Initials to be signed. I not be provided any so-called comfort care, such as hospice, if the effect would be to prolong my life. Initials to be signed. Additional instructions. I direct that upon acquiring dementia or becoming comatose or paralyzed, that all forms of life support and so-called comfort care, save for pain medication, be permanently withheld. I realize that I may change the aforementioned directives at any time by revoking this declaration and constructing a new one. Validity of copies. Copies of this document have the same authority as the original. Distinguishability. If any part or parts of this document are found invalid or illegal under applicable law by an authoritative judicial court, the invalidity or illegality of such part or parts shall in no way affect the remaining parts, and this document shall be construed as though the invalid or illegal part or parts were never included therein, unless the intent of this document would be nullified thereby. Reasonable logistics. This document was made upon careful reflection. Options that I have considered and rejected are not listed herein. I confirm that the health care directives contained within were made after careful consideration and in full awareness of other options that were available to me. I declare that I am an adult in the state of New York, that I understand the full import of this declaration, and that I am emotionally and mentally competent to give these directions. Signed at Brooklyn, Kings County, in the state of New York, this blank day of blank 2022. Signature to be put in there. Name and address, Kevin Charles Stewart, 1234 D.D. Ramon Street, Brooklyn, New York. Affirmation of Witnesses. The testator, Kevin Charles Stewart, is personally known to me, whom I believe to be of sound mind. Kevin signed the declaration in my presence, or Kevin acknowledged in my presence that he signed the declaration, and I signed said declaration as a witness in the presence of Kevin Charles Stewart. I did not sign Kevin's signature above on behalf of Mr. Stewart. At the date of this document, I am of legal adult age in New York State, am not legally entitled to any portion of the estate of Mr. Stewart whatsoever, and to the best of my knowledge, not under any will of Kevin James Stewart or other precept taking effect at Mr. Stewart's death, nor directly responsible for his medical care. First witness signature, printed name and address and date are required. Second witness signature, printed name and full address plus date are required. And then the record of copies, people and institutions to whom I have given a signed copy of this document. This is more understandable if you go to my WordPress site, KC Sunbeam, and read it as a written document. And that's the end of the document there. In my comments, you need a living will because without it and suffering a permanent inability to care for yourself, you will be controlled against your wishes and subject to abuse. Moreover, your savings will be swallowed up in pills, robbing surviving family members and or your charities, diverting vital space and manpower from those suffering dire medical emergency who could otherwise be helped, and burdening taxpayers, just to prolong the inevitable. So avoid such an ungodly predicament if possible. Also note that every province, region, or state may have its own specific requirements for such a document. So although my format might suffice, check to see if there are any important differences for a document in your area, and so either download a copy of a living will for your area or retype my document format word for word or with any needed changes. And note that in an emergency, responders must be aware that you have such a document. Therefore, always have a card on your person that informs others of your living will. Take care.